What does it mean to you to in this in the year 2021 to be doing old time music?
I've listened to a lot of different kinds of traditional music, for many years, of all sorts, from all over the country and from all over the world. And there's just something in the old fiddle music, American fiddle music, particularly Southeast, some Southwestern and Midwestern too, that's mine, and I own it because it 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 gives me life inside, when I hear it and when I play it. I mean, it's mine. It's not something that I'm parroting. I mean, we all learn from listening to other players, but I've taken that and it lives inside my body, if you will, in my bone marrow. And I'll be able to still play long after I can no longer remember the name of any of these tunes, and that's already happening, I mean, I probably know, I don't know, 1,200 tunes, but I could only get maybe within a 3-day period of time, I could only get about 100 of them out at a time, and then for years, I won't think of something or remember it, and then suddenly it's jumps into my mind, and there it is again, and I've listened to. I like solo fiddle music a great deal. I like accompanied music too, but I'm not really that wild about bands with a whole bunch of pieces. I'd rather hear it unadorned, more often than not. You know, uh, it's just something that uh, I feel a lot of times that chords kind of they direct your mind the way you hear the tune. If you change the chords, you're not even going to hear the tune in the same way, you know,
Hmm.
and that makes a lot of difference, and to hear somebody play in a solo style without anybody playing backup chords, you're going to hear different, you experience the music in a different way than if you were listening to somebody playing a bunch of chords.
I know you a bit, and I think maybe you're like me. To me, this music uh, is related. You hardly look at or listen to a tune without thinking about the history involved, right? I mean, where it comes from, who it was, what the context was. Do you feel that
Mhm.
you like history like I do?
Oh yeah, I do.
Hmm.
You know, what's interesting to me is I've know people all over the country, that have direct connections to the people that played all that stuff 100 years ago in a certain way. A good example is there was a fabulous fiddler that lived in Western North Carolina and then up above there in Tennessee. That the first 25 years of the 30 years of the 20th century influenced a huge amount of people that were in that area, and there were a lot of good fiddlers. His name was J.D. Harris. Okay, and he played with this guy. He played with a few people around there that learned a lot of his tunes, but there was a guy, there were these two brothers. Their name was Helton, Ossie and Ernest. Ossie was a great fiddler, and Ernest was a banjo player. I think Ossie played the banjo too, and they probably both played fiddle and banjo both. But Ossie learned a lot of tunes from that guy Harris. And then later on, these other people, Marcus Martin was another person that learned in that line, and on down to the present day, uh, there are people that learn tunes that learn them from that all came from that one particular area. When I was in Washington, there's a little town in the Cascades up there called Darrington where a lot of Tar Heels began to settle in the middle of the 20th century, and probably most of the people that live around there are descended from those people. And that fiddler, O.C. Helton's son, lived there. I met him once, and he played bluegrass music, and there was a lot of bluegrass and a lot of gospel singing in that area. And he was in a little band. He wasn't that great of a player, but he loved it. But his claim to fame, he was a great whiskey maker, and he used to make corn whiskey at home that he'd sell out of the trunk of his car at these festivals, and it cost $30 a gallon. And I had some friends in Seattle that were getting married at this big party out there on Marrowstone Island. Somebody brought a gallon jug of that. It was Armand Barnett bought a gallon of that whiskey from O.C. Helton and brought it out there. And it was in one of those Western family apple juice jugs. You know, that was kind of a house brand for one of those big supermarkets, you know. So we just started calling it the Western family. And there were probably 150 people at that wedding. And there was still a couple inches in the bottom of the jug. And almost everybody at least had a taste. And that was toward the end of Dewey Bulfa's life. And Karen England and Dave Lang brought him out there to that wedding party after he had a couple gigs in the Seattle area, and they brought him out there, and he wasn't supposed to smoke or drink or anything anymore. Well, he got his nose into that whiskey, turned all red in the face, and sat there playing he knew he was dying. He had terminal cancer. He sat there and played the fiddle for a couple hours with tears running down his cheeks. It was some of the best playing I ever heard, you know. And so I feel like the people that love this old music are part of this web of threads that go back, you know, a couple hundred years, you know, and that I'm part of that web, as are you, you know, just by virtue of having known these people and taken in from them what they were, the music they were putting out, you know. It's really a different kind of genetics, you know.
This is really true. It's like being out here in California, we're sort of like in a different world than if you grew up in the Southeast, for example,
Yeah.
where, you know, the cultures developed and persisted for so long, and you can still go back there and experience it. Whereas when you're outside of the region, you can experience it from a distance in a different way. But
In a different way.
yeah,
But there are people that you don't even know about, you know, that had that influence from either living back there and migrating out west. There were a lot of Southerners, a lot of people from Oklahoma, Texas, and Missouri, and some people from further east, you know, came and lived out here and left their music behind here. You know, there were music collectors out here in California during the Depression when the government was trying to record people that were important culturally, you know. And I find that to be fascinating. It's not very visible anymore, but there's still little traces of it here and there, you know. You know, we know Otis, you know, I don't know him, but I'd met Otis Pierce's kids, you know, and they played some music that they learned from Otis, and he brought it here from Arkansas, you know.
mm-hmm.
And
Right.
there's
It exists out here, but it's not like
it was never mainstream culture here.
right. It was imported. It couldn't have been any.
Everything worded here.
Yeah, but I mean, it existed in where it came from for a much longer time in a much heavier dose.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, I remember meeting people in Arkansas who said, you know, it was clear they were born country, gospel, and bluegrass, and that's in their blood. They play the music, they believe every, it's just who they are
Hmm.
uh, from birth, I mean, uh,
Well, they believe in Jesus and the devil too,
that's right.
and I don't, but uh, that's actually part and parcel of the whole darn business. And if you can't make some kind of peace with that, you better stay out of there.